Welcome to another edition of Connecting the Dots. I'm your host, Elizabeth Myska, and today I have the pleasure of a new friend, Martha Wright, from the Worcester District Medical Society. Welcome, Martha.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I wanted to believe you are the executive director.
Correct.
And I was fascinated by her and how she came to this position. So again, Martha, welcome, and tell me your story.
Sure. I was born in Cambridge but raised in New York City, just outside of New York City, and moved back here after college in the late 80s. And right away started working at St. Vincent Hospital. I always had part-time jobs through high school, working in hospitals, doing per diem work on different floors. So I was really fascinated by medicine and that profession, although I know I didn't want to be a physician or even a nurse, but somehow involved. And so when I moved here, I started working in the Department of Medicine at St. Vincent Hospital, where I remained for about 18, 19 years. And then my position there evolved into working within medical education with the residency program, and then and working into marketing and recruitment. And then I got the opportunity to speak at national conferences and really get out there and meet people and get a lot of networking done. So I was hooked then, and then I ended up transferring over to UMass, where I was there for 10 years. So I got to meet a lot of the physicians. I understand medical school and how that works, and how the evolution through training works, and regulatory issues surrounding all of that. And then this position at the Medical Society became available after a 33-year stint of Joyce Cariglia manning the ship. So when she left, I was approached along with other people, and after the interview process, I was chosen. So wow. I was thrilled to. It seems like a perfect position for me. With I'm able to teach, even though my background is special ed and psychology, but I never pursued a teaching degree or teaching career. And so now this allows me to teach people and work with people, and I've met a lot of wonderful people I've never thought that I would, and I've gotten involved with a lot of projects I never thought I would, that I even thought I'd be interested in, but it's been really great.
Wow.
So.
Well, again, I had no idea. When you said you were doing per diem work at St. Vincent's, like and it was affiliated with medicine, but it wasn't medicine. So describe what you did.
Well, the per diem work was at when I was going through school, high school and college, because I couldn't remain there full time. But I was hired as a secretary in the Department of Medicine, and the position evolved into a recruitment coordinator. The ACGME, which is the Accreditation Council for Graduate Medical Education, is the governing body that allows training programs to stay in business. And so there were different policies and procedures and requirements that evolved over time. And this is any teaching hospital across the country had to adhere to these changes. And so I found that I became really interested in compliance and regulatory tracking and managing all of that kind of thing. So it was a very dynamic position, and it just kind of got me going in a trajectory of staying in medical education, but kind of advancing through the ranks and seeing
over your
numerous
numerous years of training. What would you say was the biggest quality? Was it the interaction that, again, people can access information, but I really think that when you're most successful is when you have that two-way discourse and dialogue. And is that something that you found?
Absolutely. That was the most engaging part of it. I mean, to digress a little bit, my grade school teachers on my report card would say, if only Martha applied her social skills to her studies, she'd be an A student. So I've always been very social. I've always been kind of the leader of organizing events. And so, again, this position is perfect for me. But as I grew through the training process, I learned how to deal with medical students, and they're yet a little bit different than residents and fellows who become more seasoned with the process and higher up in the ranks as well.
I'm just going to interrupt you. Why? Why are they different?
Because they come from, most medical students are coming from their parents' homes.
Okay.
And they haven't been on their own very long. They don't, they realize very quickly how they have to multitask and balance work-life issues and to manage and be successful in medical school. It's very rigorous, very demanding.
Yes.
But they need a lot of support, whether they've been on their own for a while. Most students, when they enter medical school, are in their early 20s and finish in their mid-20s. They go on to a fellowship. Depending on the specialty, it can be anywhere from another year to 2 or maybe even 3 or 4 years. So some don't get established and started until late 20s, early 30s. And that's a long time to go through all that training. But I loved watching them grow and mature and become their own person, their own physician, even under mentorship from many, many different types of physicians and personalities. So, and I was proud to be part of that, supporting their education, even though I wasn't a clinical educator. I still felt that was a really important part of that whole process. And in fact, I ran into last summer at a state conference, an intern of mine from probably 25 years ago, who's now the president of the Mass Medical Society. And I tapped on his shoulder. And all these years later, he turned around and he said, "Martha, how are you?" And he remembered.
Wow.
And so I know, and from talking to other coordinators, the impact that you have. What I'm finding now with the students, in fact, we're starting a brand new medical student committee to further collaborate with UMass Medical School and to engage our younger physicians, because they're our future physicians. And we want them to understand more about the medical society and get involved, and they can get involved in the regional, state, and national level as a result. And it was amazing to me. We went around the room. We were on a Zoom meeting, so 12 new committee members, and they're all so engaged and so interested and passionate about a lot of different things. So we have a nice, well-rounded committee, but a lot more interested in public policy. And without getting into what today is all about, Election Day, I think that might be part of that sudden interest at this juncture, at this time of the year, or this time in their medical school training. But a lot are interested in other things too, which we're all about. Editorial writing, public health, public policy I mentioned, and we have an editorial board that puts out Worcester Medicine magazine. So many are interested in writing and expressing their opinions and wanting their voice heard on many different topics and levels. So it's a good forum.
Well, that's
so
excellent. Have you found over time that there's been a change in focus on medical students? And I'm sure the education has become more, I hate to use the word onerous, but more rigorous?
Well, I think times have changed, so as technology has changed. So when I started doing this, we barely had computers and we had DOS systems. Now there are major databases that are run at the national level that are the repositories for filtering all of the application activity down to the residency programs that these students choose to apply to. And so there was a lot of manual labor and a lot of things like that from the administrative side, but from the resident or student side of things, policies and procedures have changed, the requirements have changed and become more demanding in terms of duty hours, and so they have to do the same amount of work in a lesser amount of time, but have a proper handoff so not to compromise patient safety. So I feel like medical students are having to think a lot about things now that they didn't have to historically. When you talk to one of our senior members, for example, they might have been on call every other day, so you don't really have a day to rest in between. And now there are very specific duty hours where students they can't take a call more than 1 in every 3 days. And different specialties dictate different things, but that's kind of a norm. And so I think the shift with students has shifted from, a true interest in patient care and following in their father's footsteps or mother's footsteps kind of thing, to now things are looked at from a lifestyle perspective and this is my opinion, I think, but from a lifestyle perspective for different specialties, our call's rigorous, and students are starting families much earlier these days. It amazes me how many students have children during medical school and during residency, and that's a testament to how well they're doing and managing everything. But it's a shift, I think, in how the regulatory agencies have kind of not forced, but guided people to think differently and think of life differently and plan differently. So things are students are having kids sooner instead of waiting. We have non-traditional students who start later in life because they might have experiences and want to change careers, or maybe they're passionate about public.
Yeah,
I mean, they multitask. They have multiple interests. They really balance work and life very well. From being involved in different clubs and having to go to labs and maintain, classes and grades while they're raising kids, and with COVID, I've noticed a change too with with health and well-being and taking care of yourself, and let's not lose sight of that. People are taking on different hobbies, and so hobbies you never thought you'd do, play guitar, bird watching, things like this that allow you to do them by yourselves or very small groups. And I think that the value of taking care of yourself and making sure, because you have so much going on and so many balls in the air, that there's still that element of taking care of yourself. And students are doing that, and there are a lot of wellness groups that have been created and that they're part of, and I think that's helping to foster and help them maintain that balance that I think was harder to do years ago, because it was like a mold, like you said. You go to school and you start your career and then you start your family, and it was not rigid, but
you're kind of like in a rut. But you just keep your head down, and then things will happen, as opposed to you being the catalyst and allowing things to happen. Something you said also prompted another thought. Do you find that there's more discourse and interaction, that, in other words, that people are more willing to, and maybe it's due to COVID, to profess that they're uncertain and I need help with this? And do you find that across specialties as well, or?
Well, I think these are very different times, and I've found that most people are actually very, very patient and understanding. So I think, to answer your question, I think, yes, I've seen, like after 9/11, I saw suddenly a lot of people are just calmer and being nice to one another. It takes a really difficult situation sometimes for people to become more grounded and realize what's important, and moving forward, how do we accept this and deal with this? And so, for example, we have to do our meetings virtually now, but our meetings are always in person, and the good part about that is the mingling and the social half hour before the educational lecture or before the awards ceremony. And it's such a fulfilling thing. And for students starting out, they need to meet their older colleagues and their mentors, and that's who they're still learning from, even if they're not in practice, because we all meet in these groups. So now that we're meeting through Zoom, people are still craving the socialness, and so we spend the first few minutes of the meetings chatting, and then we get right down to the business. Share knowledge. So, I mean, I was saying, every Zoom call or webinar that I do, I get more and more comfortable, and I'm able to now help people with their questions, which reinforces what I know and helps me learn and keep the business going. But people are pretty understanding. If there's a little glitch there, it's not like, oh my God, I made a terrible mistake with this production, but they're, it's all right, and I like that. I like the collegial, calm, less demanding. COVID's been horrible, but I think it's kind of put a lot of things into perspective. Anyway, it makes my work a little bit easier now that I'm getting used to it this way.
And the camaraderie. Again, you don't know what you don't know, and that's what I say to the students all the time. You don't know what you don't know, but the travesty is if you refuse, you refuse to be exposed to it, and and if it entices you, that you refuse to learn it. So it's okay not to know, but be curious, be inquisitive. Well, Martha, it sounds as though this Worcester District Medical Society is popping and hopping, and where do you, in the minute or so remaining, what are your aspirations for 2021?
Well, we're just discussing our annual calendar now because we're moving forward as though the world will continue being virtual. We want to maintain our presence. We want to let people know that we're there for them, both patients and community members and other constituents. And I think that the start of the student committee is one big step. We've upgraded our magazine and our website to include other things that we hadn't before. And so I'm just looking forward to continue maintaining a very positive presence within the community.
And if people were curious or wanted to get in touch with you, website or telephone number?
Sure. So our website, it's simply wdms.org. It's Worcester District Medical Society, so wdms.org. And the phone number is 508-753-1579. And Melissa Boucher is my assistant. She's always there to help.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being my guest today.
Well, thanks for having me.
I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.